Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Such a pleasure to have all of you here. This amazing, beautiful weather we have outside. And today we're going to have Teresa inspiring us with a beautiful lecture. She's going to be talking about Spiritist, right? And the context of the manual to our lives and how can we learn from that to grow as a human being, as a spirit, as a born spirit. This blessed morning today. We obviously can open our minds and our hearts, right, for this moment of learning together, so we can share this opportunity of learning between all of us, and just to inspire us for today's lecture. I'm going to read a passage from the book Happy Life by Divaldo and Joana de Angelis, and this is how it starts. Okay. Listen calmly whenever you're invited to do so. Let the other person complete his thought. Do not jump to certainly incorrect conclusions. Not everyone can express himself quickly and clearly. So listen cheerfully. Ignore misstatements and poor choices of words in order to understand what the other is trying to say. If someone accuses you, search for the root of wrongdoing and get rid of it. Dialogue shall always happen without bitterness. Live in a positive balance. If it clarifies something for you or teaches you something, absorb the lesson. If he's blaming someone, lessen the intensity of the offense with expressions of comfort to the offended party. And now, we're going to start with our prayer, as we normally do, right, before our lectures, before having Teresa talking to us. So let's all of us at this moment elevate our thoughts to our Father, Mother, God, our Creator, and our Master Jesus, and ask that this moment we can feel the energy that flows from above, touching each one of us. May we all put ourselves in a position to be helped, connecting to these energies of our Creator. Let us all open our minds to the teachings that we're going to be discussing today. And we ask, my brothers and sisters, that Teresa may be helped, guided, and blessed during this morning. And for every one of us, our afflictions, our stress, everything that right now is boiling inside of us, may we all connect to that energy too and start the process of repairing, reconstructing, and learning. Thank you, God, for this opportunity, and may God bless us. So be it. Teresa?
Okay, good morning, everyone. Nice to have you all here today. So the lecture today, as Marco said, it's called Emmanuel for Life. And there's two ways I could go with this. I could actually do a manual, so items, manual, first item, just reborn, second item, go through, But then I realized that none of us read manuals, right? Unless you're assembling an IKEA furniture, the truth is none of us read manuals, right? And even though I know some guys who do not try to even assemble IKEA furnitures without reading the manual, which is almost impossible. So I thought, you know what? Why instead of just being a manual with items and what to follow and not to follow, why not being a sample of someone who became himself a manual of life, someone who becomes more than anything a guide, because I think in the end that's the correct word. It's not a manual, but a guide. And of course I could go to the maximum guide that we have, which is Jesus, but how about go to someone who's a little bit closer to us? And let's talk about Euripides Barçanufo. Because when we talk about his life, when we talk about how his life was guided, how his actions through his life, we can see him easily as a guide, as a manual for life. So there is a book written by Corina Novellino that it's a biography about Euripides. And when she told Chico Xavier that she was going to write a biography about him, Chico Xavier told her, "My daughter, are you aware that writing a biography, Euripides' biography, is pretty much almost the same as writing Jesus' biography?" And kind of telling her, do you understand the responsibility of what you're trying to do? And she goes, "Yes, but I'll try. I'll take the task. I'm going to do it." Right? So just to give you an example why I decided to use Euripides, because he's truly an example of how we should guide our lives. So Euripides was the son of Mecca and Mojico. Mecca and Mojico were married in 1874, so we're talking about more than 100 years ago, okay? 1874, on a time where the way that the marriage happened is Euripides comes with his cousin to the house, talks with the father only to arrange the marriage, like, "Oh, I want to marry your daughter," and then the daughter at this point has zero input, doesn't even see who's the guy, but she's with her sister, kind of looking to the, like, in the corner, like, you know, a little opening on the door, and she sees two guys, doesn't even know which one is asking her to marry, but she just knows that there's one that she thinks is ugly, and she really doesn't like that guy, and she's crying and crying because I don't want to marry the guy, and I don't want, if it's him, I'm doomed and everything. And she finally finds out who's her husband at the day of the wedding at the church. Anybody's willing to? Well, let me know. And luckily for her, the guy who asked her to marry her was actually Euripides, which was the other guy. The other guy that she said, okay, no, the one who looks good, like I like him. Right? The other the one that she didn't like was actually the cousin. Right? So they married, and of course, even it was an arranged marriage at the time, spiritual plan doesn't sleep, right? We do, they don't. So they made a way with those two souls that were meant to be together and get married. 1876, so 2 years later, their firstborn arrives, and that's when Mecca starts to have her first problems with the health, starts with her first health problems. So she would faint, she would have not feel well, she would have visions. And because of that, and she carried this problem for 30 years without nobody knowing what she had. And she would faint, and most of the time that would happen when she was at church. So Euripides' family was a very, very strong, had a very, very strong Catholic faith. And then at the time, going to the church, to the Mass on Sunday was mandatory. Like, it's not an option. Oh, today I don't feel like, no. You had to. And you can be sure that if you didn't show up to the Mass, we're talking about this is in Brazil, of course, if today is a Catholic country, imagine at that time a very strong Catholic country, the very strong faith in there, and it was mandatory. If you didn't show up to the church, you could be sure that someone would notice, and you would have someone come to your house, and probably the priest would come to your house and say, "What are you thinking? Oh no, you crazy? Why you were not there?" But because Mecca had this problem, and a lot of times would happen while she was in church, would faint and have like some weird reactions, she was excused to pray from home during the Mass, because for you to be able to stay home, you had to be excused by the church. So she was excused, and for many, many years, she was allowed to have praying from home. For the next 26 years, Mecca and Mojico had 15 kids. So if you think 1 or 2 is a lot of work, they had 15, 15, okay? Anyone as well? Just let me know. They had, and they're not rich families. Oh, I have 15 kids, I can support all of them, it's fantastic. No, they're very, very poor. Very, very little financial means. But again, very strong Catholic faith. On May 1st, 1880, so just the beginning of this month, we celebrated Euripides' birthday. Euripides is born. He was the 3rd kid of the 15 he is born. He had a very poor childhood, obviously, very malnourished, always sick as a child. But even as a child, he already had this thing of helping the sick. He would help everybody, had this really good heart, but he had already this connection, especially to sick people, but especially his mother. Right from childhood, he had in his mind
that he wanted to heal his mother, that he had to find out what his mother had, and he's the one who's going to help her, because he had to heal her. Like something, it was like, he had this mission, I have to heal my mother. I have to help everybody else, but his mother was a special mission that he carried inside of him since he was like 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. So he asks his father, he's very young, he asks his father to put him in school. So his father puts him in school, and he's like an absorbing pad in school. He learns how to read and write so fast, and everything that's given to him, it just absorbs as a knowledge, right? Unfortunately, for a few years, in 1885, his father decides to go to a different city because there was a job in there that would pay a little bit better, and they go to a city called Cipó. The problem is that in Cipó didn't have school. So Euripides for a few years has no access to school, but he's still learning from whatever books he can put his hands on, and he's only 5. Let's make clear. 1885, he was born in 1880, and whatever his father could teach him during these years. Luckily, 4 years later, he's now 9 years old, they decide to go back to Sacramento. The job that was there, there's no longer that job anymore. They go back to Sacramento. And of course, not as a coincidence, there's 2 things that was happening in the city at the same year. First, there was a new school in the city called Colégio Miranda, or Miranda College. I don't know if you could translate as a college, because college in English means something a bit higher. This would be more like a new elementary school in there, right? So, in this school, he learned French and Latin. 9 years old, I could barely learn English. He learning French and Latin. And in the same year, a new doctor comes to the city, Dr. Onofre. And then Euripides, at 9 years old, starts to get in contact with his medical books. And he's so enthusiastic about the medical books, like he's absorbing those medical books, because remember, he has a mission, I'm going to cure my mother. So he is very enthusiastic about these books. Funny thing is that today, when your kid's 9 years old and decide to devour your medical books, you're probably going to be super happy. Oh my gosh, I have a genius in the family. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. The problem is at the time, the doctor and his father was very worried about it. They thought there was no normal at all, and there's something wrong with the kid. As a 9-year-old kid interested by medical books, something wrong with the kid, right? So they're actually very, very concerned that this kid's interested about medical books. But when the mother goes to talk with him, because it's funny, because Euripides had this thing, when he has concern about his kid, and I probably all kind of have parents like that, he'll never go to talk to Euripides and say, Euripides, I'm worried about this. He'll go to his mother and say, can you talk with your son, because that's how it is, your son, right? Because this moment always becomes your son, that, something's wrong here. So she goes to talk to Euripides. And Euripides tells her that he wants to cure her. He says, I know it may sound a bit weird that I'm interested in these medical books, but I wanted to cure you. And what a mom is going to tell to a son? A 9-year-old son, they say, I want to cure you. Go ahead. Right? In 1897, so now Euripides is 17 years old, for the time, highly educated actually, as a 17 years old. It becomes a new guy. He meets this guy called Ormenio. And Ormenio was a guy who worked with the homeopathic medicine. Something that at the time was kind of a new, and new not in the sense of being used, because homeopathic medicine have been using for thousands of years, but is new in terms of scientific knowledge, of now having actually books studying, scientific books that talk about the subject, that, and brings to a more scientific level. So he gets in contact with the books from this guy, and again, he just devours those books. And he's 100% sure that is in the homeopathic medicine that he's going to find the cure for his mother. He says, here's the path. That's what I'm going to do. And right there, at the age of 17, he already worked, does a lot of things to help his family. He opens his first homeopathic pharmacy. And he starts already treating people for free. It's not that it's like, oh, there is a venue here for me to make money. No, he sees the medicine and the knowledge that's in there to help people. how to heal people. And then he starts to help people for free. And he was already going everywhere to help people. So it's not just the people who come to pharmacy, but people start to go there and say, hey, there's someone who's sick, but they cannot come here. So he would go to the house, would take care of them, spend nights with the people, watching. So he's already doing this work in the pharmacy, but going and helping people. In the same year, 1997, something actually very important happens. That is, a Spiritist center is open on a nearby city. It's a city called Santa Maria. So this is all happening in Minas Gerais, the state of Minas Gerais. And so this Spiritist center is open, the Spiritist house is open in the city of Santa Maria. And his uncle, Sinho, and his godmother, Sanya, are not only part of the Spiritist group, but they're actually part of the mediumistic group of this house. And we're going to see that this is going to have a very important fact. It's going to be a very important fact on Euripides' life very soon. So in 1902, so it's now early 20s, he decides to open a school. He decides to join some of the teachers and open a school in Sacramento, which is called the Liceu Sacramento. And so he started to teach not only the normal subjects that any other school would teach, but he also started to teach. He had a very strong curriculum in science and art. And this school became so famous in Brazil that in a short time, there's people, especially people with money, sending their kids from all over the country to go to his school. And actually, that's when he becomes, he not only becomes a homeopathic doctor at the time, but he also becomes a very skilled educator. So the school is like doing amazing, has kids coming from all over the country to study with him. But then in the next year, something very, very important happens with Euripides. So Euripides is highly, highly involved with the Catholic Church. Remember, his family is a very strong Catholic faith. Since childhood, he's very involved with the Catholic Church. He's part of many, many activities of the Catholic Church. And because of his personality, he was a highly organized man, very rational, and very serious about everything that he did. He was a very, very important, became a very, very important person inside of the structure of his local church. Right? And he was someone that everybody saw him as being a priest in the future. Even himself probably saw him, that's my path. This is where I should go. But in 1903, one of the priests, Father Augusto Maia, decided to call Euripides on a side and say, Euripides, I have a book here that I would like to give you to read. But nobody can know that I'm giving you this book to read because it's a prohibited book. It was a book that unless you're a priest or higher, so unless you're part of the church, the clergy, you could not read this book. It's a prohibited book. I'm going to give you this book for you to read because I think, you're probably going to like it, but nobody can know. And guess which book is this? It's called the Bible. So the beginning of the century, 20th century, was prohibited for people to read the Bible. It's a very easy way to control people when you take away information. I give you no access to information. That's what a lot of our governments do with us, right? So when you don't give access to information, I'll make you to believe in whatever I want you to believe, right? Or whatever is my interpretation in the end, right? And that's when Euripides starts to have that first little crack on his faith. Because what's happening, he starts to read it right through the New Testament. That's why he starts reading the Bible through the New Testament. And he's so amazed, but so amazed by Jesus' teachings at this point. That's like, Euripides used to have this special place in the nature that he would go and he needed to have a quiet time, when he needed to meditate, when he needed to read his books. He always would go to this spot. And he took the book in there, he took the New Testament in there, and he starts reading. And he's very, very amazed for what he read in there. With the exception of one part that he didn't understand at all. It's called the Sermon of the Mountain. He read the Sermon of the Mountain like, what? What it means, blessed are the afflicted. So, what, we should be happy because I'm suffering? What means that? So what, my mom should be happy that she's suffering for years and years now with that illness? What kind of a God is that? That says blessed are the ones that are suffering. Shouldn't he be taking the suffering away? What's happening here? So he didn't understand the Sermon of the Mountain. But besides not understand the Sermon of the Mountain, why was the first crack done on his, like it was a small crack at this point on his faith? It's because now he's reading the gospel, has access to the information. He's a very rational man. Reads what he sees here. He reads Jesus' actions. How did Jesus act with someone, with everybody around him, with his tolerance, no discriminating, treating publicans and pagans and the people who believe in him exactly the same way. And then he starts to see Jesus and look into the church that he follows blindly at this point and says, something's not matching here. Because the actions that I see here in Jesus, a lot of times is not matching what has been taught to us or how people are acting inside the church. So right there, that bothers him. So but it's still just a small crack on his faith. What really, really caught him was the fact that he couldn't understand the Sermon of the Mountain. So he goes back to Father Augusto Maia and says, can you explain? Because he said, no, he has been reading this book for many years, has studied, so he knows way more than me. Can you tell me what means the Sermon of the Mountain? Because I do not understand. And the answer that he gets is, in the Christian teachings, there is always a mystery. It's not up to us to know. And Euripides go home very, very, very disappointed with that answer. Very disappointed. It's like when a child says, you cannot do that. It's like, why not? And say, because he said no. And the kid goes, but that doesn't answer my answer. I want to know why, right? So it's like what happened with him. And he said, oh, this is a mystery. It's not up to us to know it goes. Because probably in his mind, say, if it's not up to us to know why it was written, it's here. It must have an explanation. So he's very, very disappointed with this answer. And then on the same year, his Uncle Sinho, who he loved dearly, he really loved his Uncle Sinho dearly, comes to visit. And he knows his uncle is coming. He knows his uncle is following the Spiritist teachings right now. And he's ready to talk with his uncle and prove to his uncle that, this whole teachings from the Spiritists is all wrong. It's all like it's all a mistake. He's ready to put his uncle on the right path, right? But then his uncle, who's a much less educated man than him, gives him a book, says, what, I have a book for you to read. Kind of, you want to talk about or even criticize, how about you read it about? And he gives him a book in French, the original, from a philosopher called Leon Denis. A book called After the Death, sorry. The book's called After the Death. Euripides read the whole 300 pages in the same night. Because he starts to read and read. The night he starts to read and he cannot stop. Because he says he never ever had read something that has so much rational explanation, so much consolation actually, because it's talking about after death in a completely different way. And remember, he had just read, now had access to the New Testament. So now this is a guy who starts to make connections. And in order to read this book in 300 pages in one night, which even if I try, not happening. First, because I definitely would fall asleep. Easy, no matter how interesting the book is. The next day, he goes to his favorite spot and reads the book again. That's how, touched by all this knowledge that arrived to him. Like he cannot believe what he had just read. So he reads the same book twice in 24 hours, basically, right? So it's talking about 600 pages. And in fact, this book brings tears to his eyes. He brings tears to his eyes. And what he says, what he states about the book is, I never saw someone sign the glories of the creation with so much depth and beauty. And that's a guy who's not even a Spiritist yet, or anything. But when he reads this book, he sees, something there. And this moment on, he starts to read everything about Spiritism. Everything. So probably, I'm going to guess that probably his uncle's kind of furnishing him with all these books. So he starts to read everything about Spiritism. So remember how he had that crack on his faith just by reading the New Testament? Now he's shaken. Now it's more than a crack. So now his Catholic faith is actually shaken. And the problem is that his family and the church start to notice. And they're very, very concerned. Family, because they think he's going crazy. And the church also because they think he's going crazy, and also because they realize that losing someone like him was a great worker for them. A guy who has a charisma, very charismatic, who was able to, with his love and care that he always had since a child, could carry a lot of people with him. So he saw this as a dangerous, actually. It was more than thinking he's going crazy, he saw this as a danger. So now there's a lot of concerns here from the church and from his family, and on top, and of consequently, a lot of pressure, right? The following year, so it's now in 1904, so he's 24 years old now, and he's invited to go to a ministry group meeting at Santa Maria by his uncle. He said, come with us. And because he had read everything about the Spiritism, he now wants to go and see, because now he's a little bit of like doubt about this thing. Can we really communicate with the spirits? So let's go there. Let's, because it's a very rational, very scientific mind. I want facts in here. So he decides to go to this mediumistic group, and basically the meeting's happening here at the table, and then him and some other people are just observers sitting in a chair. And nobody knew that he had this doubt about the Sermon of the Mount, because he read the book. Nobody knows that he read the New Testament, so it's a secret. So nobody knows that he always carried this doubt about the Sermon of the Mountain. So he's just sitting there, and he has a thought. He doesn't talk to anybody, so just in his thought, he thinks, you know what? That's the question that he does in his thought. He says, I understood everything from the Bible, but my capacity to understand the Sermon of the Mountain is closed. I have no capacity to understand that. If it is true that the spirits can communicate with the living, I pray to John the Evangelist to teach it to me through the medium Aristides. A touch arrogant, huh? You really think? A touch arrogant. No. I wanted the guy. The guy who wrote it. I want him. I don't want his assistant. I don't want anything. I want the guy. You wrote it. Come here to teach me, and I want to choose the medium. I want that guy who I know is illiterated, so he cannot write. Isn't that possible? I want the guy who I know is a low education, who never had read the Sermon of the Mountain, because in fact, unless you're me, or the priest, nobody read the book. I want that guy to pass the message. Minutes later, Euripides receives this message, which is such a rational and clear explanation about the Sermon of the Mountain, that in that moment you realize that the Sermon of the Mountain actually just summarized all Jesus' teachings. So basically I can get the whole gospel, throw it out, and if I just have the Sermon of the Mountain, I'll have all Jesus' teachings there, all condensed. That's when he understood. Guess how the message was signed? Peace, John the Evangelist. He asked for it, didn't he? So read right there. Did anyone approve? So from that moment, Euripides is 100% convinced that the communication with the Spirit is true. He has no doubts anymore, right? Because nobody knew that he had this question in his mind. Nobody knew that he had asked for John the Evangelist to give the message, and nobody knew that he had asked to be that specific medium. And that is exactly what happened. So at the moment, he's completely fascinated about the Spiritist teachings, about the logic behind the teachings, and how it really matches with everything that he had read in the New Testament. But even though he already now 100% believing in the communications, connected to the Spiritism, there's no real doubts there anymore with him, he's still connected with the Catholic Church. He still had that connection. He's still not completely disconnected from the church. He's now doing much less activities because he was highly involved. He would do a lot of activities. Now he stopped doing many of those activities in there, but he's still connected. But the church is seeing, all right, this gradual disconnection, right? And then the high priests are very, very concerned about it. And not short time after, his uncle invites him to go to another Unionistic group. So if it goes again there. By this point, it's the spirit of Dr. Bezerra de Menezes that talks to him and gives him a message. And actually tells him, you actually have a healing mediumship. So that's when it's open to Euripides, that he has actually a healing mediumship, that was his mission. And he said, and in that work, I will be your mentor. I'm going to be your mentor for your healing mediumship. And then another spirit talks to him. It's the spirit of Vincent of Paul. And he tells Euripides that he has been his mentor since he was born. So he was actually his lifetime mentor, was Vincent of Paul. So a lot of responsibility here. And what he tells to Euripides, because remember, Euripides is like now fully aware that Spiritism is the way, or the teachings that he read Spiritism, but he still has that connection. It's almost like the umbilical cord is there, like, you know, it's hard to, because imagine the pressure that he's receiving as well from family. It's hard. And what Vincent of Paul tells is, let it go with no resentment, the position that you have in the congregation, saying, now it's time. Like you have a mission, it's time to let it go. I invite you to start a new institution, which the base will be the Christ, and in which I will be the spiritual director, and you will be the material commander. So basically, it's time for us to start a new teaching here, a new school. I'll command from the spiritual plan, you're going to command from the incarnated plan. We're going to work together from now on. But he warns Euripides, because he knows it's not going to be easy. So he tells him, the doors of Sacramento will be closed to you. Your friends will desert you. Your own family will be against you. But don't worry, spread the truth. Because from now on, the responsibilities of your spirit have been amplified to no limits. So basically, this is the path. This is the path of Christ. Go with faith and don't even look back, because you're going to be supported. But until you keep your faith and truly do it, you're being supported. Don't look back. So at this point, he goes back to his city. He completely breaks his ties with the Catholic Church. And he's asked an explanation, like, why are you doing it? And he tells the truth, explains everything. Talks about the mediumistic groups and everything. And what they say is, you are crazy. Spiritism is a fabric of crazies, and you are crazy. And his answer is, blessed madness that has enough discernment to distinguish wrong from right, to exchange fake for the reality of the spirit. So basically saying, if If this is crazy, what a blessed crazy. Because a craziness that puts people on the right path, fantastic. I want to be crazy. Let me be crazy because I'm feeling blessed with my craziness. That's his answer. At this point, the bishop of the area unites with all the priests, and he starts a process of persecution against Euripides that lasted his whole life from now on. Because again, imagine this guy leaving, a guy who was pivotal for them is leaving, and has the capacity, because they see the love in him, he see how it is, and the truth is they see that he actually carries the truth, so they know how dangerous he is, right? Because if I'm doing a bad job and someone starts here to do until I'm the only one doing a bad job, great, but until someone comes beside me and starts to do a good job, my bad job starts to show up. So it doesn't look good to me. So I wanted this person to go away. So Father, remember the priest who gave him the gospel? He gave him the Bible to read. He starts to feel extremely guilt because he thinks he's the one who drove Euripides to madness. Right? And unfortunately, he actually, because of this feeling of guilt, falls in the hands of the inferior spirits, and he actually goes to madness. He ends up in an institution completely mad. And if you read the biography, Euripides is the one who helps him. Further down. So at this point, Euripides says, yes, I'm going to take my mission. So a whole movement on the spiritual plane starts to happen to support him. So first thing that is affected is his school. Remember, he had started school with his teacher. All the kids in there are from Catholic families. So first thing he starts to do, parents start to take their kids away from the school. The teachers who are his colleagues starts to abandon him. So he's now abandoned for him, and he's actually forced to close the school. He has not enough kids to run the school. Right? But at this point, his mediumship is flourishing. It's flourishing so much, that Euripides starts to see him out of his body many times, even when he's awake or when he's asleep. And that's when Euripides actually, one night he's lying in his bed and he feels the spirit coming out of his body and going higher, 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 higher. And he wants to come back because he's starting to get scared, but there's this magnetic thing pulling him and pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling, until the moment that he arrives to a field, and from far away he sees a man meditating, and he comes closer and recognizes Jesus. So that's his first meeting with Jesus. Euripides at this moment humbles himself, starts crying, and keeps in silence because he thinks, who am I to talk? But he knows that Jesus is crying as well. And he asks Jesus, why you cry? And Jesus does not answer him. So he asks one more time, do you cry for the ones that do not know you? And this moment Jesus answers to him, my son, I do not suffer for the ones that do not believe in me. I cry for the ones who know the gospel but do not put it in practice. When I read this is such a strong phrase, because this is us who say that we believe in Jesus, that we believe in everything, but probably practicing. And of course, we all practice to our best on what we can do. But we're really practicing, and we know Him, and we like to say that we know Him. Right? The moment that you hear this from Jesus, the pain and the sadness that causing Euripides is so strong that he in a second just sees himself back on his body and he wakes up. And from that moment, he decides that he will devote every single second of his life to the work of Jesus. And that's exactly what he does. At this point, remember, he has no school anymore, but he still has a healing mediumship. So at this moment, he's attracting so many people to his house, people that come for help, who need medicine. He's still doing his homeopathic medicines. But he starts to get so many people at his house that his father said, you know what, I'll help you to buy a place because I cannot have all these people here in the home anymore. So his father helps him to buy a place. And that's where they're gonna do, that's the place where later is gonna become the school. It's called School Allan Kardec and the Spiritist Center. So in that space. But at this point, the school is not opening yet. He has a space now to at least start to receive all these people and help. Has been a year now that he's a Spiritist 100%, and his father calls the mother and say, Mecca, you have to go talk with the Euryptes, your son. You have to go talk with your son, because I do not want a crazy sons in here in the family. So go tell him to burn all the Spiritist books and end with this madness, because it's enough. Okay? So the mother goes to talk to him. Euryptes starts to talk to her about the gospel, about the Spiritists. And Mecca goes back home, and the father says, so, did you solve the problem? She goes, yes, I'm a Spiritist. Right? She says, from now on, I am a Spiritist. And actually, a few years later, his whole family becomes a Spiritist, and each one of the family becomes actually a support on the whole work that he does, either on the pharmacy or the Spirit Center, in the school, and he has the support from the whole family. And remember the mother? Remember was the main mission since he was a little one? Was to cure his mother. So now as a medium, he realized that what his mother had was an obsessor that connected with her from the moment of the firstborn. And also what he realized that what his mother had, actually the problem was not even that she had an obsessor, because no obsessor, if you know what's going on, you can deal with. Like, she had no idea. She was actually a healing medium as well. And Euryptes described her as being a way higher, way stronger healing medium than he was himself. So what she really had, it was an uncontrolled mediumship. So now through Spiritism, so first he helps that obsessor spirit to, take his path. And now through Spiritism, she understands what she has, so the visions, fainting, not feeling well, right? Now she understands, so now she has a controlled mediumship. And she never had any problem anymore. So 30 years later, he had a mission, he fulfilled his mission with his mother, right? And he helps her. So she now becomes a very, very important person on his work, because she's another healing medium who's there to help him. So in 1905, he opens a Spiritist group called Hope and Charity with his brothers. He was very serious about the passes, because he saw them the healing power that they had. So for you to actually be in these passes with him, you had to have a high knowledge, like even your attitudes, everything. Wasn't just not anyone that could go and give passes for him. 1907, he already opened a school. He reopened Liceu Sacramento. The problem is he had just a few students, and then he's going to have to close the school again. He doesn't know what to do. So one day he's there, and the school is empty. He's crying, he's praying, and all of a sudden he feels like writing. He feels like writing. But because he's a medium, when he noticed who was the spirit who was going to write through him, he says, no, I'm being deceived here. There's no way. So the spirit goes there and mechanically grabs his hand and writes the following message. Do not close the doors of the school. Erase the sign with the domination Liceu Sacramento, which is a remnant of the human pride. In substitution, you will call the school Colégio Allan Kardec, which again, college I cannot put as a college because it's an elementary school, not a college, right? But it's called the school Allan Kardec. Teach my son's gospel on Wednesdays and start an astronomy course. I will cover the Colégio Allan Kardec, or the school Allan Kardec, under my blanket of love. So if you guys pay attention, the Spirit said, teach my son's gospel. So signed by Mary, servant of God. So Mary herself said, keep going, change the name. You're going to teach Spiritism on Wednesdays. You're going to teach astronomy, and I'll be here. And in no time, this school had a waiting list for kids to study in the school. He makes a revolution in the education system. He creates mixed classes. He does something that for these days is still a revolution in the educational system, what Euripides does. And the kids just love to study by the way that he does, and he makes them really want to learn. Like, he makes a revolution in the education system. And a really interesting fact is every day at 12:30 in the school, he would do a prayer. Everybody in the city, no matter how far they were from the school, could hear his prayer. To the point that people who didn't know, like, was new in the cities, like, what is that I'm here? And people, oh, don't worry, that's Euripides praying. It was like known to the city already at 12:30. So the spiritual plan would amplify his voice throughout the whole city, and the city on that moment was showered with good fluids and light. One guy praying would lighten the whole city. It's okay, it's a small city, but it is still a city. I can barely light my place. If I'm lucky, when I'm doing my gospel at home. Okay? Could light the whole city. So he still has his pharmacy. He treats about 1,000 people a day, between the people that comes direct to him to the people that he's sending prescriptions to all over the country. Okay, he would still go to people at night time. He would be, like, sometimes he would be teaching, and as a spirit he would be here with the school, in the school as a body. Kids would be doing the homework. On spirit, he would go and treat people who was in need. He would treat people when he was sleeping. He would spend nights with patients. He was devoted every single second of his life to helping the people, just as he said he would do. He would do surgeries. He would deliver babies. He was still doing the homeopathic prescriptions under the influence of Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, or the help of mentorship. And sometimes he would prescribe the Spiritist book as a medication. That's what this prescription. So you guys think, do we all here think I have busy lives, right? Very busy, lots to do. So I'll just give you his schedule to you guys. He would wake up at 4 in the morning. 4 to 7, he would do the prescriptions to the outside, because he received hundreds and hundreds of letters from all over the country. In fact, the city of Sacramento didn't have a post office. They started to have a post office in the city. So from 4 to 7 in the morning, he would prescribe all the medication to the people from the outside. Then from 8 to 10, he would actually manipulate and prepare so they could be delivered and shipped. 10 to 3, he had all the activities in the school, so he would teach. 3:30 to 5:30, he would prescribe and do the manipulations to the ones from the city and nearby cities in there, so the ones that come in person. 7 to 9, he would have the activities in the Spiritist book. On Thursday, he would do the bookkeeping for his father. On top of that, we had the people who knock, was almost the daily knock at night time. Was someone sick, and he would go and help those people. And you think he's busy already? From 1907 to 1912, he was the MP for the city. He was the MP for the city. And Sacramento never had such an advancement while in those years that he was the MP. And that year they had a construction of a power plant, a rating system, piped water, everything under his MP. So he was just didn't go there, get the job, and didn't show up to work. No, he did his job as an MP. And now when we look at this whole story and we think, oh, see how amazing was his life. Has Mary, Jesus' mother, backing him up. Has Dr. Bezerra de Menezes backing him up. Vince of Paul, his mentor, lifetime mentor, right? A team like that, his life is piece of cake, right? Isn't it? No, it's not. Remember, he was persecuted by the church the whole time. It never ended. And in fact, they actually went to the justice, went to court, and they sued him for charlatanism and for practice of illegal practice of medicine. And Euripides was devastated by it, but kept his faith, and he was really, really worried, because what's going to happen? Like, if he's prosecuted, if he goes to jail, who's going to keep doing the work? Like, he's really, really worried. And one day he's crying, and he's humble, and his humble gesture, He says, I'm so small to receive such a help from the spiritual, for the spiritual plan. Like, who am I to receive all this help from the spiritual plan, right? And in this moment, is the spirit of Ismael that shows to him. And if you guys don't know, Ismael is the spirit that actually is responsible for spiritually taking care of the whole country of Brazil. Right? If you read the book Brasil, Coração do Mundo, Pátria do Evangelho, which is not translated to English, Ismael is right there. Ismael comes to him and says, don't be afraid, Euripides. In this matter, I will support you, as the matter in the court. Say, don't worry, I'm here to back you up. Again, keep doing your job with faith, keep it in the path, but I'm here. In this matter, I'm here with you. And right the next morning, he wakes up at 4 in the morning. I'm just waiting to get me to wake up at 4 in the morning. It's not happening. At 4 in the morning, he's doing his habitual prayer in the morning, right? His regular prayer in the morning. And that's when he has his second meeting with Jesus. So he's in his garden praying, and Jesus shows up for him and says, my son, do not fear. We are with God. The victory is ours. And it's like, if you're doing the right thing, there's nothing to be afraid. Until you're doing the right thing, we're all here to support you. So don't be afraid. So it's very funny. So then there's this thing happening in court. And what started to happen is that the case went to one judge. The judge would look to the case like, oh man, I don't want to judge this. And it would pass to the second judge. And then the second judge would look. And probably they all knew who he was, knew what he was doing. And they would look like, no, I cannot judge. So you pass to another judge. And this passed from judge to judge, and nobody could judge him. Like, nobody could do anything until the one just said, you know what? Forget about it. Let's just close this case, and like nothing's going to happen here. And that's how the case is closed, actually. So everybody in the city is celebrating that he's now, has no problem anymore with the justice, that everything is, it's fine. But on top of this, he had many times a hitman hired to kill him. And he many times has been warned by the spiritual plan to say, change your path today. Move your habitual, like your regular path. Today you're going to go through this street. Because right here there's someone waiting to kill you. So, because I have this impression that when those people see all the support that they have from the spiritual place in their lives, it's not easy. It is not easy. Had a hitman, and in fact, there was one time that they brought a bishop to debate him in public plaza there, to debate, because this guy was known as this bishop that nobody could win him on a debate, and this bishop comes armed, has a gun to come to do this debate with him, and he's warned by the spiritist. By the spirits, that just be careful because he's actually armed. And then of course he has this conversation with him right there in public, and he with such a humbleness and respect and everything, this bishop could not argue with him, right? He could not, and in the end he goes and hugs this man. He hugs him, a man that was there ready to maybe even kill him if was needed, right? But that's how Euripides was. So we think his life was easy, just get his schedule. I think if any of us could do his schedule, if anyone could devote it the way we were, right? This man had not a single minute that was for himself, was always to the others, on top of all the pressure that he received, persecution and everything, and he kept it at every single moment. Euripides discarnated in 1918, but before that he's already very close to his discarnation, from 1917. He's already close to discarnation, and the spiritual plan is already telling him, your moment is coming. Right? So he's actually preparing himself and kind of preparing his family as well. So in 1918, a major influenza epidemic happened in Brazil. It was a very famous one at the time, and actually it was a crisis in Europe, and ended up, through immigration, ended up coming to Brazil, and affected millions of people in Brazil, including Euripides. So Euripides now is very, very sick, but he does not sit down. He does not want to start. He's sick, he's still caring for people, he's still writing his prescriptions. He doesn't want to stop anyways, because remember what he promised to Jesus when he met him the first time, I'm going to devote it every single second of my life to doing your job. So he is very, very sick, And actually they have to call his mother, because got to one point that he cannot stand anymore. But he knew that his mother was the only one that could make him lie down. So she goes to him and says, Euripides, you need to lie down. You're very sick. So he lies down. From this moment, he never gets up from bed again, still writing prescriptions from his bed until the very moment. So for the 3 days, his 3 last days, even though he's very sick, he's still writing his prescriptions and trying to help as many people, as much people as he could until his last second. Finally, November 1st, 1918, at the age of 38, he discarnates. The whole city and hundreds of people from the nearby city comes for his funeral. That's how much loved he was, how much respected he was for all the work that he had. It was not because he was a Spiritist, it was just for all the love and charity and fraternity that this man has spread it around, for the amount of people that he has helped. So he received his love back from everybody the moment that he discarnated. For many, many years, his family and friends kept going with his work. And in fact, there's even someone who wrote something about him, against him after he's dead, and people wanted to just fix it and everything. And he comes on a mediumship and said, no, you guys don't need to respond. There's nothing to be responded here. Let them see, like, just keep the path of the goodness. Don't worry if people are saying things that are not true. If they're offending, just keep on the path of truth. And that's the story about Euripides, and I really decided to bring him today. Not as a manual of life, because I think manuals are very hard to follow and fulfill, but as a guide. I think that's what it should be, a guideline. Someone that when we feel a little bit lost, we can look at him and say, how did he act? Again, it's the guideline. I didn't also bring the Euripides because I want us to all be Euripides. We're all going to be like him. It's not going to happen. I know for myself, it's not going to happen in this lifetime. Eventually, yes, one day I'll have enough moral evolution to act like him. But have him as a guideline. The moments that we are lost and we don't know what to do, where to go, let's use him as a guideline. And he's not the only one. We have him, we have Chico, we have Mother Teresa. We have so many guidelines out there. So let's use their life experience, the actions, because that's most what he taught us, by action, as our guideline for life. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa, for inspiring us with the life of Euripides. Now, we have time for a few questions. If you have anything from the internet, or any of you guys want any comments, any questions? I have a quick question, which may be not that quick, but it's a good question. You know, I know Euripides, and we learned so much with learning about the biography of Euripides, but like for all of us here, maybe we don't connect precisely with a lot of things, just because we feel that what he was doing is so much ahead of us that we're like, you know, I can't, it's just too much for me right now. So what do you think will be the simple steps that we can take right now, maybe to implement those little things in our life, so we can kind of move towards the direction of Euripides?
Yeah, it's true. And imagine I brought Euripides, it's true, it's so far away. Imagine if I had decided to bring Jesus as a guideline, then it would be like so far away. So that's what's like, I'm going to take a few steps to learn and go someone who's still so far away. You're right. To me, what I take from Euripides is that the little things that we can do is, when you see so much forgiveness on his actions, right? He forgave everybody that offended him. So that's one thing that we can do, because sometimes we cannot even forgive like little offenses. Let's start with the little ones. Maybe the big ones is still kind of hard, right? It's very hard. But how about the little ones? How about I can forgive the guy who didn't hold the door for me instead of saying, thank you very much, right? So that's what it is.
Yeah,
You pretty much not, or when you hold and the person doesn't thank you and say, you're welcome. right? Basically, that's what we did. We didn't forgive a small offense, right there, because I feel offended. I did you a favor, I didn't say that thank you.
Yes.
That's what I'm feeling offended. So how about start the little things? I think those little things we feel start working on it, we can do it, right? Because or if it's forgiven so much higher offenses, then we're not ready for it. But the little ones we can start. So I think we can take everything that he did and just bring it to a smaller scale. Am I going to be able to help everybody? I'm going to open a pharmacy tomorrow. I'm going to do everything for free for 1,000. No, I don't have the capacity, the knowledge. I don't have the money. I don't have anything. But can I help a few people around me that have the capacity? We can, right? So it's almost taking what he did and bringing it to a small scale and say, inside of his examples, what can I do that's very little around me that I can do? I cannot build a whole school. But can I help someone who's studying right now and needs some reinforcement here? Hey, he's trying to learn English. I actually can help you study a little bit, right? Can I do it? Yes, I can. No, actually, I'm terrible at teaching. Like, there's nothing to do with the teaching, but I can help on something else, right? So that's the thing, what it is. You have to take his examples and not necessarily do what he did, but bring to my reality. In terms of forgiveness, in terms of helping the others. What's the little bit that I can do, right? I'm not going to do a big job like him. And we're not expected to, actually, to do any big job, right? But we're expected to do what we can. The little things that are around us that we actually can reach and do. And that can be just doing a good job on my own work. Because if I do my job with responsibility, the way it should be done, without complaining, which is, for me, not gonna happen in this lifetime. I'll try, right? But when I do a job, even though they are the one that I'm being paid for, yes. But if I do that with responsibility and with care, how many people I'm working around? And if I don't do my job well done, which should be done because I just decided, well, you're not paying me enough, I don't care. How many people your bad job doesn't affect in your company or in your environment, right? I deal with patients. If I do a bad job, I'm affecting someone who's sick. Right? And we're not talking about mistakes that we all make, right? Like we all make mistakes. Sometimes we forget something. It's not what we're talking about. We're talking about I'm intentionally saying I'm not going to do a good job because I don't like my boss, right? So how about we start being there, even by just doing the things that we are actually expected to do it already, right? So that's how I see like being to our reality a little bit.
No, I think it's a great point. And remember that one of the things that Jesus, in one of the encounters, told him is that I'm more concerned about those who actually know what I'm teaching and actually don't do it. And I think that's what I think is represents his life, right? Because he knew it, and by the time he got conscious about it and he learned and he studied, he went after it, like he went searching for information. By the time he learned it, he put it in practice, right? He put it 150%, right? So I think, and the message that he brings to us, I think, is that, like, let us all put into practice one little step at a time, achieving goals, setting up goals that we can achieve, so we don't set ourselves for failure, right? And then we can't continue, right? And we do this all the time, right? That's something, setting like New Year goals and work goals and work and goals here and goals there. It's like, my New Year goal is like to be a new person. Like, it's not going to happen, right? This is who we are, right? So, yeah, take a little step at a time and setting up goals that you can accomplish. Like, obviously, he set up a goal that he was going to transform an entire city. He could do that, right? He had the support. He was ready for it. That was part of his mission. But we can do our tiny little step towards doing that too, and transforming where we live and the schools our kids are, and our community and our neighbors and our city through so many different ways, and our hospitals. There's so many ways we can help and we can volunteer. See, there's a lot we can do, right? I think that's what he brings to us.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, that's the small things that we can do. Let's do what's that reach. Have to remember that he's a spirit that was prepared for their mission, right? But we are also prepared for our mission. There's a lot of little things that can be done around us that it is at our reach. And we all have our mentors. We all have our mentors. We always have our supporting guides. Because we look at those people like, oh, gosh, you got Emmanuel. Like, why, you think you don't have one? Yeah, it's proportional to my
And we don't know who they are, right?
They
But
are,
they're around.
but they are,
Yes.
they are around, right?
Yeah.
And the more we do the good,
Yeah.
the higher is the support that we have around us. The more we do, because none of those people here would be around him if he had deviated from the path, right? So it's not that they came and supported him. They said like, okay, now I'm gonna do the work. No, it's the opposite. Because he
ready to do
was doing the work, those spirits start to come and help him. Right? With the exception of Vincent Paul was his mentor from childhood, right?
Yeah.
But all the others like, okay, because you're on the right path, we're going to start to help you. Right?
I was about to say that
Yes.
he showed deservedness
Yes.
Exactly.
for
Correct.
having all that help.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So just for the internet, so the comment was that Euripides was already showing that he deserved it. He was putting the work up front, so he was receiving the help, right? Because you know, it's a two-way channel, right? If we don't do our part, like there's not a lot we can get help, right? We have to put ourselves in a position to help.
I remember, right, even before he got in contact with the Spiritist, his pharmacy was already for free. So he already concerned about helping the others and put his efforts in there, right? So because of that, you start to attract to the good. And it's for all of us, right? Nobody's special, right? Like the process is the same for us. Of course, that for me is not gonna be, you know, married, it's gonna come and stuff. But comes someone that's proportional to, you know, what I need. And what's proportional to what I deserve actually in the end, right? But they come. If we keep it in the path, they will come and will support us. Right?
Thank you, Teresa, one more time. Thank you. So we're going to go ahead now and have our passes. So we can invite everybody to join us. Yeah. So we can do it all here. So as we know, passes are this transfusion of good energies that we receive, particularly here in this moment. We're all prepared for it. We're going to dim the lights just to help us concentrate a little bit. And we ask you all just to keep our minds connected with the message that we just discussed, thinking about our Master Jesus always, right? Because that is our little pathway to perfection.